At Westbrook Academy, nothing about me fit in. It was a private school filled with tall gates, trimmed lawns, and students who wore new clothes like they were born in them. I only sat in those classrooms because of a scholarship. My mother had cried when the acceptance letter came. She said it was God opening a door for me. But I knew from the first day that the other students saw me differently. My name is Naomi Raymond. I am 17 years old. I live in a part of town where the sidewalks crack and the streetlights sometimes flicker out at night. I walk to school every day with secondhand shoes that squeak on rainy mornings. Hey! Besties, please kindly take a moment and subscribe to this YouTube channel, thank you. Back to my story. They saw the girl whose lunchbox carried homemade sandwiches instead of takeout meals. They saw the girl who never had the latest phone. They saw the girl who rode the bus while their parents dropped them off in glossy cars. And most of all, Amelia Williams saw me. Amelia was the daughter of a wealthy lawyer in town. Her hair was always perfectly ironed, her nails always fresh, her smile always deliberate. Teachers loved her confidence, students bowed to her popularity, and she walked the halls like she owned them. She noticed me from the start, not because she admired me, but because she saw in me a contrast that made her shine brighter. "Hey, scholarship girl," she once called across the hallway, loud enough for others to laugh. Kept walking, clutching my books tighter. The words stung, but I had learned to hide my reactions. My mother always said, "Naomi, don't let them see you bleed." Still, no matter how I tried, the weight of being the outsider pressed on me every day. I studied harder than anyone else because I knew one slip could cost me the scholarship. At night, I stayed up at the small wooden desk in our apartment, the hum of our old fridge in the background, while Mom dozed on the couch after another long shift at the diner. But inside, I carried something none of them knew. My voice. When I sang alone in my room, when I hummed walking to school, or when I whispered lyrics while washing dishes, it felt like my soul was wider than my circumstances. But it was my private treasure. I never planned to reveal it at Westbrook. That was until Amelia decided to make me her entertainment. It started one breezy afternoon in the cafeteria. Students crowded around shiny tables, laughter echoing as trays clattered. I sat at a corner table, eating my sandwich, when Amelia's voice rose above the chatter. "Naomi," she called, dragging out the name like it belonged to a joke. Her friends giggled. I froze but forced myself to look up. She strode toward me, her glossy hair bouncing. "You know Founders' Day is coming, right?" she said, placing manicured hands on my table. Her friends clustered behind her like shadows. I nodded cautiously. Every year the school held a grand celebration with performances, speeches, and a stage decorated with banners. "Well," Amelia continued, her smile spreading like a blade, "we've been talking and we think it would be special if you sang something that day. You're on scholarship after all. It would be such an honor to hear from you." Her friends burst into muffled laughter. My throat tightened. I knew this wasn't an invitation, it was bait. They expected me to croak, stumble, embarrass myself before the whole school. Till all eyes turned to me, waiting. I swallowed hard. "If Dr. Davidson agrees, I'll do it." My voice shook, but I held her gaze. Her eyebrows arched, surprised at my answer. Then she smirked. "Perfect. Can't wait." That night, I walked home under the dim streetlights, my steps heavy. The thought of standing on stage terrified me. I could almost hear the whispers, the laughter, the mocking eyes. But deep down, another voice rose, quiet yet steady. "What if this is your chance?" When I reached our apartment, Mom was sitting at the kitchen table, her uniform apron still on, sipping tea from a chipped mug. She looked up at me. "What's wrong, Naomi?" she asked. "They want me to sing at Founders' Day," I whispered, dropping my bag. Her eyes widened. "That's wonderful." I shook my head. "No, Mom, it's not." Amelia asked me. "It's a setup. They want to laugh at me." Mom reached across the table, her hands rough from years of work, and took mine. "Naomi, people can laugh all they want. But if God gave you a gift, don't hide it. Use it. Even in front of those who doubt you. Her words sank deep. I went to bed that night staring at the ceiling, fear and hope fighting inside me. My heart pounded as I imagined the stage lights, the sea of faces, Amelia smirking in the front row. But then I pictured myself singing, not nervously, not trembling, but pouring out the songs I had sung in the privacy of our home. Thought both scared and thrilled me. In the days leading up to Founders Day, Amelia and her friends kept their smirks sharp. "Better warm up those pipes, Naomi," one of them teased in the hallway. I kept my face blank, but inside my chest something stirred, like fire waiting for air. I practiced in secret, whispering melodies while doing chores, humming softly on the bus. No one at school knew the sound of my voice. To them, I was the quiet scholarship girl who blended into corners. To myself, I was beginning to wonder if maybe, just maybe, I was more. Founders Day drew closer. Banners hung in the hallways, rehearsals buzzed with excitement, and students prepared for the big celebration. The whole school would gather in the auditorium, along with parents and local guests. The morning of Founders Day arrived with crisp air and golden sunlight spilling across the courtyard. Westbrook Academy looked almost unreal. Banners of blue and white streamed along the gates, flower arrangements framed the entrance, and families arrived in elegant cars that gleamed under the sun. I walked up the steps in my simple dress, one my mother had ironed twice over, her hands careful, her smile trying to hide her worry. Inside the auditorium, the seats filled quickly. Students buzzed with chatter, parents greeted each other warmly, and teachers rushed about making final preparations. My heart thumped as I slipped backstage, clutching the thin program in my hand. My name sat printed under the list of performances, Naomi Raymond Vocal Performance. I felt like my lungs had shrunk. I wanted to disappear into the shadows. But then I spotted Amelia Williams standing near the curtains, her designer dress shimmering under the lights. She didn't look nervous. She looked satisfied, like a queen surveying her victory before the battle had even begun. She caught my eye and walked over slowly, her heels clicking. "Don't be nervous, Naomi," she said in a syrupy tone that made my skin prickle. "Just sing your little heart out. I'm sure everyone will remember it." Behind her, a few of her friends stifled laughter. I pressed my lips together, refusing to answer. I couldn't give her the reaction she wanted. Still, the tremor in my hands betrayed me. From the stage, we heard Dr. Davidson's voice booming. He stood tall in his suit, his presence commanding silence. "Welcome, students, parents, and honored guests, to Westbrook Academy's Founders Day celebration. Today, we celebrate tradition, excellence, and the talents that shape our community." Applause thundered through the hall. I peeked from backstage. The auditorium looked enormous, every seat occupied, faces blurred together into a sea of expectation. My knees almost buckled. The first few performances passed, a piano recital, a short play, a dance routine. Students stepped off stage smiling, bowing to cheers. With each act, my turn crawled closer. I leaned against the wall, trying to steady my breathing, when Amelia appeared again, this time with a group of seniors. "So, Naomi, what's your song?" she asked, pretending curiosity. I swallowed. "You'll see." Her eyebrows arched, a flicker of irritation breaking her composure. She wanted me to stutter, to shrink. Instead, I gave her nothing. She tilted her head and smirked. "Well, I hope you're ready. It would be a shame if the scholarship girl fell flat on the school's proudest day." Her words hung heavy. But beneath the sting, a different thought sparked. What if she was wrong? The stage lights shifted. The student announcer stepped up to the microphone. "Next, we have a special performance. Representing the strength of our scholarship program, please welcome Naomi Raymond." My name echoed across the auditorium. Applause rose politely, though I could feel the hesitation, the whispers curling through the rows. I heard a faint snicker from the section where Amelia sat with her friends. My feet carried me forward, though my body felt stiff, my palms clammy. Curtain opened, and suddenly I was exposed under the harsh glow of lights. The microphone stood waiting, tall and cold. The crowd blurred into a wave of faces, parents leaning forward, students whispering, teachers watching intently. My heart hammered so loudly I thought it might drown out everything. I gripped the microphone. My throat ached with dryness. Behind the first row I spotted Amelia, her arms folded, a smug smile on her lips. She leaned toward her friend and whispered something, and they both chuckled. The humiliation they craved hovered, ready to fall on me if I faltered. I closed my eyes. For a moment, the noise faded. I remembered my mother's words, "If God gave you a gift, don't hide it." I inhaled slowly, imagining our tiny apartment, the chipped mug on the table, the sound of the fridge humming. I wasn't here for Amelia. I was here because this was the moment I had been given. When I opened my eyes, the auditorium sharpened into focus. I lifted my chin, steadied my breath, and prepared to sing. The microphone felt heavier than it should have, like holding it meant holding the weight of everyone's expectations. My fingers trembled against the cool metal, but I forced my breath to slow. I glanced once more at Amelia Williams. She smirked from her seat in the front row, arms crossed like she had already written the ending of this story. Her friends leaned forward, hungry for the embarrassment they believed was about to unfold. A hush spread across the auditorium. Even the shifting of feet and the whisper of programs being folded seemed to stop. The silence pressed against my chest. I swallowed, closed my eyes for a heartbeat, and then parted my lips. The first note left me soft, like a secret escaping. But it hung in the air, pure and steady. I felt the tremble in my knees steady just slightly. I let the next note rise, fuller, pulling from the place in me I never showed anyone. By the third note, my fear began to break apart like glass shattering, replaced by a warmth that surged upward from my chest. The lights blinded me, but I didn't need to see. I sang to the shadows in my memory, late nights studying, mornings on the bus, my mother smiling despite her tired eyes. I sang to every crack in my life, pouring my voice through them until the auditorium wasn't a hall full of judgmental faces. It was a canvas waiting to be filled. As my voice swelled, I dared to open my eyes. Change was almost too sharp to believe. The audience that had leaned back with skepticism now leaned forward, still listening. Parents' brows softened, students' smirks froze mid-curve. The laughter Amelia had planted before the performance had vanished. I carried the melody higher, letting it crest like a wave. My throat opened, my lungs burned, but the sound felt like freedom. Each word I sang wrapped around the room, climbing the walls, echoing against the high ceilings. The acoustics of the auditorium caught it, magnified it, made it larger than me. Somewhere in the second verse, I forgot Amelia was there at all. I forgot about the scholarship label, the cheap dress, the cracked sidewalks of my neighborhood. In that moment, I was only Naomi Raymond, and my voice belonged to no one but me. By the final chorus, the song rose to its peak. I stretched the note, long and unwavering, holding it until even I was surprised by the strength. The silence that followed was deafening. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to pause with me. Then came the sound. A single clap. Then another. Then an eruption, applause crashing like thunder, rolling through the hall. People stood from their seats, the entire audience rising in a wave. Cheers, whistles, shouts of praise. My chest heaved as tears pricked my eyes. I lowered the microphone slowly, my hands still trembling but for a new reason. The kind that came from standing taller than you thought you could. Through the blur of applause, I spotted Amelia. Her smirk had melted, replaced by something colder, smaller. Her eyes were wide, lips pressed together, her confidence cracked for the first time. She clapped, reluctantly, but her face betrayed the truth. Her plan had collapsed in front of everyone. I bowed my head slightly, stepping back from the microphone. My knees threatened to give way, not from fear this time, but from the weight of what had just happened. Curtain began to close, the stage crew pulling it shut, but the applause carried on, muffled only slightly by the heavy fabric. Backstage, I pressed against the wall, breathing hard. My hands covered my face, half laughing, half crying. I had done it. Not just survived, but soared. A teacher brushed past me, giving my shoulder a squeeze. "That was extraordinary, Naomi," she whispered before rushing off to manage the next act. For a moment, I stood frozen, my ears ringing with the echoes of the crowd. The sound clung to me, wrapping me in something I had never felt at Westbrook Academy: belonging. When I finally walked out from behind the curtains, students who once ignored me now turned, their eyes wide with something close to respect. Some even smiled at me. A few whispered words I couldn't quite catch, but their tones had changed, no longer sharp with mockery but softened with awe. The show went on, but I hardly heard it. My voice still lingered in the air, and in my heart it played over and over, reminding me that I had faced the storm meant to drown me, and I had risen instead. The applause rolled through the auditorium long after I had left the stage. It was the kind of clapping that built and built until it shook the floor, until you couldn't ignore it even if you tried. I stood just behind the curtain, my hand pressed to my chest, trying to believe it had been real. For so long I had imagined only humiliation, but now the humiliation belonged to someone else. When the curtain opened again for the next act, I slipped into the wings, just far enough to glimpse the crowd. Parents were still talking about me, gesturing toward the stage with astonished expressions. A few students in the front row kept glancing back as if they couldn't quite reconcile the quiet scholarship girl they knew with the voice that had just filled the hall. I caught sight of Dr. Davidson, the principal, standing near the back. His arms were folded, but his smile gave him away. It wasn't the polite kind of smile he gave at assemblies. It was proud, genuine, the smile of a man who had just discovered something rare within his school. He leaned to whisper something to another teacher, who nodded vigorously. I turned slightly and saw Amelia Williams still seated, her posture stiff, her face unreadable. Her friends whispered to her, but she didn't laugh this time. She sat frozen, her perfect image cracking under the weight of what had just happened. I almost pitied her, but then I remembered the smirk she'd worn when she set this trap. Backstage, the performers congratulated me in hushed voices. "That was incredible," one boy muttered as he adjusted his costume for the play. "Seriously, Naomi, I didn't know you could do that." I offered a shy smile, still overwhelmed. My throat burned from the notes I had stretched, but it was a good burn, like proof that I had given everything I had. As the event continued, I found myself pulled out front to sit with the other students. Whispers still rippled around me, but the sound was different now. No laughter, no sneers. Just awe. Felt strange, heavy in a way, because for the first time I wasn't invisible. After the final act, Dr. Davidson returned to the stage. "Before we close," he said, his voice carrying easily, "I want to acknowledge something special. Today we were reminded of what talent looks like when it is born from perseverance, not privilege. Naomi Raymond, thank you for sharing your gift with us." Applause thundered again. I lowered my head, heat rushing to my cheeks. It was surreal, my name spoken with honor instead of mockery. When the program ended, students poured out into the courtyard. The sun was sinking lower, casting golden light across the lawn. Parents mingled, taking photos, congratulating their children. I lingered near the edge, clutching my bag, unsure if I should stay or slip away quietly. That's when I felt a presence beside me. Amelia. She stood with her arms folded, her expression tight. "You surprised everyone," she said finally, her voice flatter than usual. I turned to face her. "That wasn't what you expected, was it?" Her jaw tightened. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to snap back with something sharp. But the words didn't come. Instead, she shrugged, her gaze sliding away. "Enjoy your moment, Naomi." And then she walked off, her heels tapping fast against the pavement. For once, Amelia Williams had no power over me. I stood there, breathing in the crisp evening air, my chest still warm from the echoes of my song. Around me, the world looked the same. Students laughing, parents chatting, teachers gathering their notes, but inside, everything had shifted. I realized then that Amelia hadn't truly lost anything tangible. She still had her wealth, her popularity, her glossy image. But she had lost something she couldn't buy back, the certainty that she could control me. And I had gained something I never thought I'd find at Westbrook Academy, my own voice, not just in song but in courage. When I walked home that evening, the streets looked the same, cracks in the sidewalk, peeling paint on old fences, the hum of passing cars. But inside me, everything was different. Each step carried a new weight, not of shame but of pride. The applause still echoed in my ears like a heartbeat I couldn't quiet. The apartment, Mom was waiting. She had rushed from her shift, apron still tied, hair escaping her bun. The moment I opened the door, she read it in my face. "You did it," she whispered, her eyes wet. I nodded, and suddenly I was in her arms, sobbing into her shoulder, the tension of the day spilling out. She stroked my back and murmured, "I told you, Naomi. I told you your gift wasn't meant to be hidden." We sat at the table, the chipped mug between us as always, but the room felt larger somehow, as if the walls had expanded to hold this new piece of me. She asked every detail, what song I sang, how the audience reacted, even what Amelia's face looked like. When I described Amelia's frozen expression, Mom chuckled softly, shaking her head. "Pride always finds its match," she said. The days that followed were nothing short of surreal. At school, students who had never spoken to me now greeted me in the hallways. Some whispered, "That was amazing, Naomi," as I passed. A few stopped to ask if I'd join the choir or if I gave lessons. Even teachers seemed to look at me differently, their smiles warmer, their tones more respectful. But the greatest change wasn't in them, it was in me. I no longer walked with my shoulders curled inward. I lifted my head. My voice had built me a shield stronger than any expensive dress or car. Amelia, however, was quieter than before. She didn't throw insults in the hallway. She didn't call me scholarship girl anymore. If anything, she avoided my gaze. Her power had always come from the laughter she stirred against me, but now that laughter had vanished. She had lost her audience. One afternoon, Dr. Davidson called me into his office. The room smelled of polished wood and old books, sunlight slanting through the blinds. He leaned back in his chair, hands folded. "Naomi," he said, "what you did on Founders' Day was remarkable. You reminded this school that talent and worth are not measured by wealth." I swallowed, unsure how to respond. He smiled. "We'd like you to represent Westbrook at the regional showcase next spring. It's an honor reserved for our brightest performers." For a moment I couldn't breathe. Me? The girl who once sat alone in the cafeteria, who dreaded the whispers in the hallway. I managed a shaky, "Thank you, sir." When I left his office, the sunlight on my face felt like more than light. It felt like possibility. That night, lying in bed, I thought about Amelia. I thought about the laughter she had planned, the humiliation she wanted. Instead, she had given me the stage that changed everything. Life had a strange way of twisting cruelty into opportunity. I realized something then. The world is filled with Amelias, people who measure worth by money, by appearances, by status. And the world is filled with Naomis, people overlooked, underestimated, dismissed. But one voice, one moment of courage can shift the balance. I didn't need to be rich to stand tall. I didn't need to fit their mold to be respected. All I needed was to use what was already inside me. As I drifted to sleep, I whispered to myself, "Never underestimate the power of a gift, even when others try to bury it beneath their scorn." And for the first time since stepping into Westbrook Academy, I felt not like an outsider, but like someone who truly belonged. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel and share to your loved ones.